Vin Diesel just dropped an update on the next Fast and Furious movie after all those rumors about it being cancelled. Turns out everything's back on track, nothing's getting scrapped, and production is about to kick off very soon. The main issue before was a disagreement between Diesel and Universal over the budget, which supposedly stalled the script and actor contracts. That might have been true for a while, but things are clearly moving forward now. According to Collider, Diesel recently posted a video with Universal's chief marketing officer, Michael Moses. In the video, Moses says they've sorted everything out. Diesel, by the way, is wearing a tee that says Fast X Part 2, Los Angeles production 2025, pretty much confirming that filming starts before the end of this year. If that's the case, the team could wrap production by mid-2026 and aim for an April 2027 release, which lines up perfectly with what Diesel hinted earlier. Plot details are still under wraps, but this one might not be the most over-the-top entry in the franchise. The budget's been a real sticking point, especially after Fast 9 and Fast X didn't exactly blow up the box office. The good news is that both Deckard Shaw and Luke Hobbs are expected to return. Jason Statham has reportedly signed on for 2 more appearances in the series, which could include Fast X Part 2 and the long-awaited Hobbs and Shaw sequel. As for Hobbs himself, Dwayne Johnson is definitely back. He already popped up in the Fast X post-credits scene. At the same time, the Hobbs and Shaw sequel is still floating somewhere in development limbo, and there are even whispers of another spin-off in the works. So while Vin Diesel keeps talking about the franchise wrapping up soon, it's honestly hard to tell when the final lap will actually happen. This series went from street racing and DVD players to rocket-powered cars in space. Originally, Fast 11 was supposed to be the end of the main saga, but Diesel has teased that the finale might stretch across 3 movies instead. Fast X didn't exactly dominate financially. It pulled in about $700 million worldwide on a massive $350 million budget, but Universal still sees this franchise as one of its biggest treasures. And as long as there's gas left in the tank, they're not stopping anytime soon. Right now, both Fast X Part 2 and the Hobbs and Shaw sequel are officially on the way, but that's just the starting line. Universal's parent company, Comcast, is reportedly pushing hard for a Fast 12. If that happens, expect the budgets to tighten, since the last 2 movies didn't exactly deliver blockbuster profits. Vin Diesel has also said he wants time to explore the emotional reconciliation between Dom and Hobbs, which doesn't sound like something that can be wrapped up in a single movie. Add in Hobbs and Shaw 2, and it's looking more and more likely we'll get at least 3 more Fast Saga projects before this franchise finally hits the brakes. And the rumored budget cuts might actually be a good thing. They could push the series back toward its roots, with a heavier focus on street racing, custom cars, and practical stunts instead of over-the-top CGI chaos. After years of wild physics-defying mayhem, Diesel seems determined to bring it all back to where it began, the streets. The latest reports about the adjusted budget only reinforce that direction. Fast X left way too many cliffhangers hanging to ignore. Dom and his son barely escaped a dam explosion. Roman's crew went down in a fiery plane crash, and Letty got rescued by the surprise return of Giselle. With that many loose ends, Fast 11 pretty much has to pick up right where the last one ended, meaning we're not jumping straight into a stripped-down street racing movie just yet. And let's be honest, Dom's crew hasn't been just street racers for a long time. They're basically globe-trotting agents taking on world-ending missions. Going back to basics sounds great on paper, but the story has become so tangled that just throwing in a race at sunset won't bring back that old magic. If the team really wants to recapture what made those early movies special, the races have to matter again. They need real stakes. In recent films, most of the racing scenes have been flashy callbacks or setups for bigger action moments, like Dante's race in Fast X, which was more about showing how ruthless he is than driving the plot forward. That's why the perfect final showdown between Dom and Dante shouldn't be another CGI explosion fest. It should be a race, a brutal, emotional, high-stakes battle for everything Dom stands for. A life-or-death race that determines the fate of his family. That would bring back the intensity, the adrenaline, and the heart of the early films, while still feeling like a proper cinematic finale. It could even give characters like Letty, Han, Giselle, and Roman their own spotlight races, giving each one a proper send-off. Meanwhile, Hobbs and Shaw could stay focused on the heavy action, since racing was never really their lane anyway. Of course, nothing's set in stone. plans for the main saga and its spin-offs are still constantly shifting. After Hobbs and Shaw pulled in over $750 million worldwide, Universal immediately gave the green light for a sequel. Back in 2019, producer Hiram Garcia confirmed that early talks had already started, but things slowed down when both Dwayne Johnson and Jason Statham got tied up with other franchises. Then Universal tried to fill the gap with a standalone Hobbs movie to bridge the events between Fast X and Fast 11, set up by that post-credits scene where Dante threatens Hobbs. But with Fast 11 now deep in development, that solo project's probably not happening. It would just make the timeline even messier. Instead, the studio shifted focus back to Hobbs and Shaw 2, making sure it fits cleanly into the overall story. Garcia confirmed that move, though he admitted progress has been slow. Dwayne Johnson has already teased that the Hobbs and Shaw sequel will be the definitive Hobbs story, something more emotional and grounded, breaking away from the usual Fast and Furious formula. He even compared it to Logan, hinting this could be Hobbs' final mission. Whether he goes out in a blaze of glory or finally retires for good is still anyone's guess. Then there's the long-rumored female-led spin-off, plus potential solo films for some fan-favorite characters. Things have been quiet on that front, but that doesn't mean those projects are off the table. In fact, it's looking more likely that Universal and Vin Diesel might split the finale into 2 movies instead of 1. That would give them space to bring back nearly every major character from across the saga, and maybe even introduce a new big bad. Jason Momoa completely stole the show as Dante, but if they somehow manage to land Keanu Reeves, who's been rumored for years and never officially denied it, that could take things to an entirely different level. And then there's Brian. Vin Diesel has never stopped hinting that Paul Walker's character could return in some way. Even though Brian's been kept mostly in the background, his presence is everywhere, from Dom naming his son after him to the countless callbacks to his skyline. As the saga heads toward its finale, it feels almost certain that Brian will somehow be part of the ending. Thanks to modern tech like deepfakes and AI, it's possible to make that happen, just like they did in Furious 7. But that's a delicate line to walk. Hollywood's record with digital recreations is very hit or miss, and when it misses, fans notice fast. If Universal decides to bring Brian back in a meaningful way, they'll need to handle it with real care and respect. At the end of the day, the Fast saga remains one of the biggest and longest-running franchises in movie history. With the box office power it still commands, there's no way Universal, or the cast, is walking away anytime soon. If the next few films perform decently, don't be shocked if the saga keeps rolling long after the supposed finale. At this pace, Fast and Furious might even outlast Avatar when it comes to sheer longevity. Still, no matter how massive it gets, that original street racing DNA can't be forgotten. It's part of what made this franchise what it is, and even if it's not the driving force anymore, it's the heartbeat that keeps the engines running.